I look very tired right now, it's because I am. I've just got off work after a very long shift. However, sometimes I just get an idea and I think, oh, I kind of want to do that now. And so that is what I'm going to be doing. 40k Shrek. This is what I think about when I get bored. Don't let me get bored. It's dangerous. So I set to work, inspired by my recent creative idea, and definitely not just because I had too much coffee that day, so couldn't sleep. But I did sleep, eventually, and after getting that out the way, I began streaming the design process, and it was at this point that a member of my community then began the next phase of this idea's evolution. You can call him Shrek. That's brilliant. Welcome back, Strawberry Milk. You've joined at a good time. Strock, I like that. I might hold on to that one. Stealing that, definitely. Oh, we could do a whole French theme. I could make their weapons baguettes. These already got onions, so that bit kind of writes itself. Do you know what we're doing that? Let's do that. It's going to be... The Ogre Lord is going to be French. So as you can see, it's not completely my fault. The design work took me a couple of days to finish, but then we hit a pretty big snag. The snag being my £1,000 printer Susan not working, which she's never done before. I have never had this happen. In fact, here's what happened exactly. That has been jamming up there since however long, God knows how long, and it's just been curing in a puddle, and that is stuck there. So that is really not good. Oh, this does not bode well for anything, really. The only reason I can afford this printer is because I can't. It got sent to me for free by a company called Yes, That's 3D Printed. And if it wasn't for that, I wouldn't have one. So if this breaks, I've now got £1,000 worth of brick, which I can't use, which would be devastating for this channel. Luckily, I managed to do some troubleshooting and effectively just redid everything. I re-leveled everything, I cleaned everything, and then I did the software update. And that is the big one. I got a little email saying that it needs an update, and I ignored it, and I exported a file on Lychee. And for whatever reason, that meant that the printer thinks, oh, I want to go through the ceiling now. I believe that is what has gone wrong here. I didn't do the update when I got the email. I just ignored it, thinking it wasn't going to make a difference, but it does. If you have a Gktwo, just do the update. But with that out of the way, and it fixed, we can print.
Oh, they've worked perfectly. I did not expect this to go that well, to be honest. This is, oof. 100% success rate. So right, how's the meth going? The meth is fantastic, actually. It's come across really well. I've done 6 meths. I believe that has a street value of £69 and 2 pence. Let's do this nice and carefully. Ooh, yes. 1 down. 2 down. This is actually going really well. I'm surprised. Removing the prints from the platform without knocking over the camera. I have never done that. Now going to take our meth and put it into cleaning solution. Maybe I should just cook meth instead of 3D printing. I'll probably make way more money. It's a good idea. And pop that over there. Okay, let's get you cleaned up. Yes. All systems are go.
These have to be some of the easiest supports I've ever removed. The toxic tea helps, of course, but they pretty much all just peeled off. I didn't really have to use that scalpel at all. With the post-processing now done, all I needed to do was prime them and now paint them, which I also did, as you can probably guess, live, because everything I've done on this has pretty much been live. I might as well just let you watch me sleep at this point. I've been on camera more than I've been off. The paint scheme is pretty self-explanatory, and here are all of the paints that I used. Painting these ogres did take a long time because they have a lot of layers, but they are now complete and ready for the big reveal, so I can finally show off all of their incredible and ridiculous features. First up, let's go for a nice neutral pose, nice and normal. This one I think is pretty damn cool. Look at this. These things have turned out wonderfully, if I do say so myself. Could you have painted it better? Probably could, and please do. I would love to see someone else's attempt at this. As you can see, he's got a little French moustache there. I'm quite fond of that one. The beret, which is a very common feature on these guys, it's actually a tiny little onion on the top of his head there, that little divot. I'll get onto the onions in a minute. As you can see, the chainsword on the back is a chainsword, but the handguard is made out of a croissant, because we're staying on brand with this one. I really went all in on the French theme. And the onions, well, I feel like the onions are kind of a crossover of themes between French and Shrek. That was just kind of the match made in heaven. And onto the onions. These here are onion grenades. They are painted purple, which is kind of the colour, I think it's Gene Steeler purple, kind of the colour of what an onion is. Keeping with the very French theme, the French flag is actually painted upon his torso in the colour scheme. Ooh, ain't I clever? Because we've got the blue of the flag, the red of the flag, and the white. His little ogre ears actually came out of the printer perfectly. I think there's one of them, they're a little bit damaged, but considering these are battling ogres, it kind of makes sense that those flimsy ears have been damaged somewhat in battle, so I can kind of get away with that one. And should I have taken a little bit more care on the eyes? Probably, but my hands are just a little bit too shaky to be able to do those kinds of details. I mean, look at the moustache. You have no idea how difficult it was to draw that. I was just basically sheer luck to draw that moustache properly. Moving on to the weapon of choice, and that is the FAMAS. I've upgraded it a little bit. Did you know that the actual FAMAS that the French military use is a 3-round burst rifle? But its magazine isn't divisible by 3. Just to catch myself before I make a blunder and mock the French for no reason, which I will do at some point. Something interesting I just read is that this is actually not uncommon in rifles that are 3-round burst, because if you have a magazine that isn't divisible by 3, what happens on that final trigger pull is the rifle will still fire something, but to the person holding it, they will then know they need to reload without wasting time with a click of death, where they're firing nothing and they're probably now being fired at. So in this case, this is a 3-round burst rocket shooting gun, and the magazine holds 4. Moving on to the shooting and throwing pose, I'm going to call it. This guy has got an onion grenade in his hand and he's poised and ready to throw it. I wanted to keep it so that he already had the other gun raised and ready to make it look like this is the one I mentioned that has a bit of a problem with the ear there. I'm not sure what happened. It might have been me being a bit too overzealous when pulling off the supports, but the rest of it came out pretty damn good. And moving on to our next pose, this one is very similar to the one that I showed you first off. The only difference is with this one, he is standing still and aiming rather than walking. Now to come back to the chainsword that I mentioned earlier, which of course is made out of a baguette. Someone said, just make it so he's holding one, and I thought, well, I could do better than that. Baguette chainsword. And seeing as the rifle I've given these guys is pretty much equipped to only fire once, it makes sense that a lot of the time they're probably just going to be doing melee and throwing onions at people. I wanted each one of these poses to be a different ogre, so every single face is at least a little bit different. None of them are exactly the same. I wanted this one to look a little bit more like a veteran, so I've added him some battle scars here. Perhaps he's been attacked by a 40k version of Puss in Boots, which could possibly be a second video. We'll see how well this one does. Maybe I will bring Puss in Boots into the 40k universe as well. I wouldn't have that much designing to do, as he pretty much just wears shoes and is a puss. I took a lot of creative leeway in this last one, which you might have noticed at the beginning. This is the leader of the group. I'm showing you this last, but this is the first one that I did. And this is Shrek with a baguette top hat. My original thought was he's the one in charge, and I think I'm going to go with that still. The only problem with this one is I painted him first, so all of the mistakes I made on painting, I made on this one. But he still looks pretty fun. I'm a big fan of that top hat. The baguette actually looks very baguette-y. I am surprised at my skills to design bakery goods. That's not something I knew I could do until now. One of my favourite things to do on this channel is to design silly models, and this definitely takes the biscuit. In terms of scale of these minis, I wanted them to be massive. So in the film, they are ginormous. I think they're about at least maybe 2 times the size of a human, or 1.5 times the size of a human. And I think I've nailed that. So if we put them next to a Space Marine is, I'm going to say, was it roughly about 8 foot tall? And the ogres are very clearly just a little bit taller than that. But if we take the Space Marine away for a minute and we take a human, if we put these two side by side, I think that scale is pretty damn bang on. Somehow I've managed to go a whole video without saying anything about snails, surrendering, or Brexit. So good for me. And if you want to get your own Shrek, which of course you would, you can find a link for them in the description below and a discount code buried in the early stages of this video so you can get them for free. If you did it, just imagine how much better painted they would be. And if you want more nonsense from this channel, I did also make some very British Necrons, which are over here.